Okay, thank you. We will begin with the call to order at 5 o'clock and start with adoption of the agenda. And I have one addition for myself. Is anything from administration?
No, Your Worship.
Anything from council? Councillor Copeland?
Yeah, one is bicentennial funding request, like they're looking for their second installment on their funding for the bicentennial celebration.
Okay.
So I don't know where you would put that or how that would.
Yeah, Your Worship, I believe if I remember the motion says that we'll advance the $25,000 in increments, and I don't think you require a further motion, but can you quickly check? Because all they have to do is reach out and ask us for the other additional funds.
Okay, well, let's look at that while I add this other item too.
Yeah.
Okay, so at the end of the agenda, I would just like to add in closed session under FOIP 17, our CAO 360 review. I received some information there, and we have to deal with how we're going to present it and everything. So I'd just like permission to put 8.1 on the agenda and move adjournment to 9. That would be my recommendation. Councillor Copeland.
Okay, and the only other thing is that I'd like to address is that I received the letter as well as every council member here, and I've worked under incredible stress for the last year and a half, and that letter is kind of the finality of it. And if council wants to discuss it, I understand that I would not be able to be in the session, but I think it's something that council should consider, and it's up to council.
Okay. And we can put that on when we're in as 8.2 and have a conversation there, as it is a personnel matter. Would that be for 17 as well?
That's correct.
Is there any,
So is that Doris Clocum's letter?
yeah. Okay, so those two items, do we need to add anything on this? Okay, I'm getting the standby. No pressure.
The motion related to the bicentennial funding reads that council allocates a maximum of $75,000 to the Fort Assiniboine Friendship Club to assist with covering the costs of bicentennial events, with the first portion of funding totaling $25,000 paid from 2022.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough, that's good.
Agree with that?
That's- So, just a question, do they have to make a formal request, or would that just be?
They should, so
Okay.
that we release, so we have paperwork that says that they're seeking another whatever they want, right?
Fair enough.
Good, thank you.
We need
Yeah.
we don't need an item on the agenda for that, do we?
No.
Okay, good. Excuse me. So just those two additions. Any discussion on the amendments? Councillor Dean?
Move that we adopt the agenda as amended.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Okay, that brings us to adoption of the minutes, item 3.1. Any errors or omissions there? Nobody's jumping up. I'll take a motion. Councillor Kush.
I'll make a motion to move the minutes from March 1st, 2023 as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? That's carried. Delegations. So this is Barrhead and District FCSS Society member request.
Yes.
Heather?
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. This evening, we have members via Teams from the Barrhead and District FCSS. Based on your request from last time, we have, if they can do some introductions, I guess. and then you can ask them any questions.
Yeah, go ahead and introduce yourselves, and we'll just go around the room as well real quick so that we get everybody caught too.
Good evening. I'm Karen Carey. I'm the Executive Director. I guess we're getting feedback at this end. I'm the Executive Director for Barrhead and District FCSS Society.
My name's Dawson Klein. I'm a board member, and I'll also I'm the chair of the nomination committee.
And you're here from the town.
Yeah, I'm here from the town of Barrhead.
Yeah. Hi. And Leslie Penny, I'm a member of the public representation on the board, and I'm also the treasurer.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining us. So we'll start with Mr. Frank.
Gordon Frank, CAO for Woodlands County.
Corinne Scott, Legislative Services and Communications.
Gavin Williams, Councillor for Assiniboine Team.
Councillor for Blue Ridge. Bruce Prestige.
Dave Cush, Councillor for Anselmo.
John Burrows, Reeve.
Peter Kilkin, counselor for Freeman River Goose Lake. Hi, Dawson and Leslie. Good to see you at work.
Jeremy Wilhelm, Councillor for Division 4, Whitecourt East.
Alan Dean,
Okay.
Councillor Division 3, Whitecourt Central.
Andre Bichan, Director of Infrastructure.
Victoria Chen, Director of Corporate Services.
Okay, very good. Sorry, I'm
Nope,
gonna take it back to you.
Heather Anderson, Community
what-
Services.
Okay, go ahead, Heather.
You guys are the ones that had some questions, so they're here to answer. You were talking about time commitment, decision-making, so if you want to ask them any questions based on what you discussed last time and their request to have a member sit on the board, that is why they're here in their delegation today.
Right, and this was that 12,500 a year, right?
No, we give them 12,500 as a part of the FCSS agreement.
Yeah.
They are looking for someone to sit on their board. And I believe you were talking about the commitment of the honorarium and costs associated with that.
Right.
So they were
Okay.
gonna give you a better idea.
I saw Councillor Dean's hand up. Go ahead, Councillor Dean, Councillor Copeland next.
Thanks. Just a question, the structure of the society. So you have a Barrhead and District FCSS Society. I see one of your members is a treasurer. You're not wrapped underneath either of the municipalities there?
No. If I could speak to that, because I've been around FCSS for some time. FCSS in our Barrhead district is unique in many respects because we are a registered society on our own right, which one of the reasons we did that, and that was way back when my colleague Martha Winchell, I think, was the director, was so that we could do fundraising and we can also take part in some programs that aren't mandated under the provincial FCSS so that we can serve our community people better. So we are not like other FCSSs that basically they have an office in the municipal building and their funding comes through that and they are an employee of the municipality.
So not only a not-for-profit, we're also a charitable organization.
Thank you.
Councillor Copeland.
Yeah, the question that I would have is, as far as time commitment goes for the county, I would like to know what that would look like. And the other part I think that I would be interested in is because we know that you guys extend up into the Fort Assiniboine area, Fort Assiniboine Goose Lake, I believe. It's just, I would just like to know what you would want us as counselors to do to advocate for the FCSS program there.
Okay, so the time commitment is every third Thursday from approximately 9:30 till noon. And we don't meet typically in July and August. And for the last couple of years, we've never met in January due to our year end and so on. So it would be 9 months a year, those however many hours. We do have occasionally where we've asked the board members to help out in certain events or certain fundraising. And that's yes or no. There's no mandatory have to commit there.
The only thing I would add to that is, since my role as treasurer is because I was volunteered to be on the finance committee, so there are committees under FCSS, but we don't necessarily meet all that often. It depends on need. For instance, when it's time to start to recruiting board members, we have a nominations committee and such things. But one of the wonderful things about Zoom is that when we do have these meetings, we can do it remotely. We don't have to all gather in Barrhead.
Okay. Councillor Wilhelm.
Just a couple quick questions. How many board members do you have? And also, are you reaching out to other municipalities, or is it just Woodland so far? Or do you already have other municipality councillors on your board?
So currently we have 9 board members. We have 2 reps from the town, 2 reps from the county, and then the rest are public members. However, we can have up to 13 board members. We have a number of board members that either their term is ending for this AGM, or due to health concerns or moving on to other communities, they will be leaving the board. So currently we're looking for
3 to 4 new board members. And right now we have Judy Bradley that currently is the board chair, but she is moving out of the area. So we actually don't have anyone from that neck of the woods, even though we provide a lot of programs, some programs in that area, right? I try and do my best to advocate for Assiniboine, but it would just be good to have somebody that can be a voice on there as well for the Assiniboine area.
Okay, thank you.
We have not approached other municipalities, as we typically don't offer services to others. We offer services, like you said, to Port Assiniboine, Goose Lake, and that's why I believe that it's important to have representation from that area to sit on the board.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And I think, just so that you understand, the concern at council was basically that when we assign board members, there's a cost that goes along with that. So we were trying to weigh the administrative cost to everybody to make sure that we're delivering services and we're spending money responsibly. That's really what the issue was. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor.
Just the one part following up what Councillor Kuchen asked, as far as what type of advocacy in the area are you looking for from the council?
I guess it would be two-way. One, I guess, bringing back to council exactly what we are providing to that area, but also so that you are fully aware, and are we meeting your council's mandate or what you want us to do, and what services you would like us to see deliver in that area. So I guess to have a better connection with the municipal government to make sure we're meeting your needs.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anything further? Got all our questions answered? Okay. Well, thank you for coming to the meeting and answering some questions. We really appreciate it. So with
Thank
that,
you.
Good to see you again, John.
Yeah. Hi, Leslie. We'll get a motion to.
Your worship.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, and we do appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation.
Right.
As you know, FCSS is a vital program in our communities. I shudder to think what some people would be dealing with if they didn't have us to rely on. And so the more that we can understand a municipality and its needs, the better.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kochen.
Yeah, I'd just like to address this to Councillor Klein. Just because you live in Barrhead doesn't mean you can't advocate for our area where you grew up.
Yeah, I do as much as I can, but it would be good to have one of you guys as well, right? To have somebody represent from that area, or Assiniboine Goose Lake area.
Councilor Wilhelm, go ahead.
I'll motion that council accepts Barrhead and District's FCS Society delegation as information.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Heather. That will bring us to item 5.1, policy 1517, credit card surcharge.
So,
And that is going to be Victoria. You're going to take us through this one. Thank you.
okay, so this policy has been vetted through the GMP meetings. And so this is just presented to council for considerations. So before implementing this policy, we will be working closely with communications to make sure to make sure that the public is aware of the changes. And we're also going to make the website live so that the ratepayers can also make the payments online as well. So looking for council's directions with this policy. So basically, again, the objective of this policy just to neutralize the cost that we pay to the credit card network facilities.
Okay. Councilor Wilhelm?
I think we talked about it a lot, so I'll make a motion that council adopts policy 1517, credit card surcharge fee effective May 1st, 2023.
Okay, very good. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay, that will bring us to policy 1518. Victoria, you're going to take us through this one again.
Okay, so this policy again has read through the GMP meeting last week. And again, this policy just to formalize the process that's already in place. This is an internal policy just to govern the use of the corporate purchase card by the staff. And this is something that has been flagged by the external auditors as one of the internal controls. So we just want to formalize the process.
Okay, thank you. Any, Councilor Dean?
Similar to the previous item, council had an opportunity to discuss this, so I'd be prepared to make a motion that council approves policy 1518, corporate purchasing card use effective April 1st, 2023.
Thank you, Councilor Dean. That motion accepted. And yeah, the online meeting procedure is working really well because even though I was not here, I was able to watch the meeting. So I got to go through the whole thing with you. And Davey did a great job chairing in my absence. So with that, I'll call the question if there's nobody. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. And I'm on the wrong page. Here we go. 7.1, Finance Variance Report.
Okay.
Victoria.
Okay. So just in compliance with the policy, in my role, I will be providing monthly variance report to the council for updates. So this is for the end of February. What I have actually included is that if you go to one of the slides, this is basically the pie chart, just speaks to the size of our revenues from a county perspective. So we have about $31.9 million as a revenues, but as you can see that the majority of it coming from property tax, 91%, municipal grants, 4%, airport, 3%, and then planning, water and sewage is 1% each. As of the end of February, we only receive about 1% of the revenues because the property tax won't due until June and July. So one of the challenges the county faces to make sure that the cash flow keep us afloat. Okay. So, and then if you go further down to this, to the presentations, the donut pie, the donuts is representing the expenses. Those are the department, the budget expense by department. So as of the end of February, the county used about 5.5%, about $2 million of the overall budget. Again, most of our major spending will be happening in the summertime during the construction. So right now we are planning as We are processing as planned, so no particular funding pressure at this point. And just an information item for council is that we will be presenting a borrowing bylaw in April, because as council has approved in the 2023 budget, is that we're going to borrow, we're going into debentures for the road project. So, any questions?
Just as a matter of structure, I guess, so part of this economic recovery plan that we were trying to execute was to make sure that we had a $10 million operating reserve. So we do have a $10 million operating reserve,
Right now, we have over, close to $18 million in the reserve.
Okay. All right, good. I just wanted to make sure that we're not running on credit, because I know we kind of run 6 months before we collect any revenue. And then,
Yep.
yeah, we've got to
Yep.
keep running, so good.
And your workshop is that, so based on your recommendation, is that at the next council meeting, I will present the breakdown of the reserve distribution as well.
Perfect. Okay, Councillor Dean.
Thank you. First of all, really appreciate this format with the headings. It makes it really easy to read. I did have one question, though, with respect to economic development on the expense side. So it is ledger account, no, I lost it, sorry, 60-63-12, so the third one under economic development. It's, so it has building maintenance. Are you with me there?
Yes.
Why is there a building maintenance in that economic development portion of this?
Okay. I probably have to follow up with you on
Sure.
that. Yeah, because
Okay.
all I can see is that is a budget items, but I'm not quite sure which
Okay.
building would that be. But yeah, I will follow up. Yeah.
I was wondering if perhaps it was, just spread out, building maintenance as a whole was spread out amongst all the departments, but, yeah, not a panic, but if you could get back. And if there's no other questions, I'd be prepared to make a motion to accept the monthly variance report for February 2023 as information.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Wilhelm, you wish to speak to the motion?
I guess it was more of a comment. I should have done it before the motion, but just to say I appreciate the adjustments in the presentation. It broke down the reports in a much more readable manner, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just gonna ask one quick question on it too, is I'm just looking really quickly here. What is our school requisition on this as well?
It is at the last page under Department 80s. It's highlighted in green.
5.
Page 33 of 53.
So it's 5.8?
Yes.
5 million?
5.8 mil, yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, very good. Any further questions, discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Victoria.
Thank
Travels.
Yes, very good. That'll take us to business arising, item 5.3. And Sheldon, you're going to take us through this one. Standard operating guidelines update. Go ahead.
Yes, through the, your worship, through council, just a quick update regarding the standard operating guidelines. Back on the 7th of December last year, there was a council meeting at that time. A motion put forward to give progress report roughly every 2 months. Currently, the standards are being worked on, guidelines are being worked on. Starting with section 1, which is the current bylaw. I've read through it many times, and that'll be going forward to G&P to get revised, just because it hasn't been touched since 2017. That's our building block for everything. Moving on to section 2, there's 14 sections in total in guidelines. The section 2, basically job descriptions for each job that goes on within the operations of the fire department. So those are being worked on with feedback from fire department members. I know this is a time-sensitive topic in regards to the guidelines and want to have them done, completed. But I feel that there needs to be feedback from the members on these, not just coming from me. So getting that feedback. It's a bit of a speed bump, put it that way, trying to get information back from members, but I'm working through it with them. So we're gaining, we're not losing, which is good.
Okay.
Yeah. And just going through this here, they're getting looked at. Like I said, they haven't been touched for several years, so they are fairly old, and that's where we're at.
Councilor Wilhelm.
So just so I understand, what we're gonna do is you're gonna do an initial review of each section and then bring it to a GNP for us to comment on, or sorry, did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, no, sorry about that. The whole thing's about the guidelines, it's operational. So the bylaw for sure will go to GNP.
Okay.
But the guidelines are operational, so they will not.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councilor Coleman.
Yeah, through the chair to Sheldon. I had a look at the org chart and how that's laid out. When you develop the SOGs, the operational pieces for a fire department, if there's any changes or when we go through this as a council, are we going to be able to, or are we approving those operating guidelines as a council?
Through worship to Councillor Negative, that's an operational, that's administration.
Your worship, members of council, the intent is that council will adopt a policy that indicates that we have standard operating guidelines, and they'll list the areas in which the standard operating guideline will be part of, right? So i.e. job descriptions, equipment, I'm trying to think. Training, and then those procedures, and that's what they are, would then be up to administration to adhere to and develop and adjust as required.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Councilor Kush.
Make a motion the council accepts the fire department standard operating guideline update as information.
Thank you, Councilor Kush. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? That's carried. Infrastructure planning report. Seems to be going too quickly. Missing something? Okay, 5.4. Infrastructure planning report. Andre.
Your worship, members of council, at March 1st council meeting, there was a notice of motion directing administration to provide council with options for an infrastructure planning report. The 4 options being proposed are a separate monthly meeting with council. We would have all infrastructure administrative or management staff there, including the area supervisors. Option 2, a written RFD infrastructure report being presented on a monthly basis, similar to the financial report. Third option, a monthly email circulated to council with the status of infrastructure planning and projects. And the 4th, a monthly Teams meeting to be held at a set time with the standing topic being the status of infrastructure planning and projects.
Okay.
And the recommendation is that council directs administration to provide a monthly infrastructure report to council as a standing agenda item.
Okay. And, what's the direction council wants to go? Any questions? Councilor Kush.
Just saying, I like option either 1 or 4. Like I do like being able to have at least the conversation instead of just in an RFD. If there's questions or concerns or anything come up on the matter, or areas of maybe opportunity in some of the districts that we've seen that maybe administration hasn't, that we can have that conversation with instead of just off an RFD. But that's my opinion.
Okay. Councilor Wilhelm, then Councilor Coleman.
I just wanted to follow up Councillor Cush's comment, and I wonder if we could do a hybrid of that situation, as where we get a monthly RFD infrastructure report and then have like a quarterly meeting where we actually meet and then discuss, in case anything does come up, and we can have that group meeting to discuss it. It might be a good hybrid to offset costs of increasing administration time, but also still giving us time to be informed, or give us more of a chance to be informed and discuss.
Okay, Councillor Cokin?
Yeah, when I read through this, I was actually, I would agree with Councillor Cush, either 1 or 4. What I found interesting was that, the infrastructure piece is the one that we really would like to understand a little bit better. So I don't really understand why the Ag Services Manager or the would be in that, because that's a completely different piece. We don't seem to have any problems with understanding what's going on there. And the planning that she does, we actually report that back to council after our meetings anyway. So I would like to see either 1 or 4 as well.
Okay, just a quick structural question. So when we talk about ditch mowing and some of is that infrastructure, or is that through Ag Services?
Ag Services does ditch mowing.
It's budgeted through infrastructure, Ag Services monitors it.
Right, so that might be the portion. I'm just suggesting
Yep,
that
fair
might be
enough.
it, because I know we've had conversations around ditch mowing and people can't see over the grass and that kind of thing, so. Councillor
To the chair,
Preston?
to council, I prefer number 1. I think we'd get a better result on the information.
Councillor Williams?
My question with it, when the notice of motion came in, I thought it was more for notifying us so we were in the loop of projects. Would it require an entire meeting to update on projects? I don't know if that would be, if there's enough to justify an entire meeting. I think at certain times, I don't mind the idea of quarterly, have some ideas bounce around and things like that, but I don't think the intent would be to influence or change when we're doing things or anything like that. So it's more of a notification versus an actual meeting, wouldn't it be?
So I'm gonna jump in here, and I think it's a little bit of both. Typically in the winter time, when we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about ripping up roads, we're talking about doing paving, but like this is when we spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
So there's some planning that comes into that. I don't know quite when the infrastructure planning begins in that, in earnest for scheduling. But I would suggest that through that period of time, we're doing a monthly meeting through those critical times when the infrastructure money's getting really pounded in and things are happening. And then you can relax that a little bit through the winter when we're just dealing with cleanups and plowing and that kind of thing, because we're at a little different service level. That's just my take on it, but.
Just a follow-up question to that, is the meeting just for notification, or is it to actually talk about how or when we're doing things? Because we typically don't schedule when a culvert repair is done or anything like that anyways, so is it almost like gonna become something where we're trying to schedule stuff for the infrastructure department? Because I don't think that was the original intent of it. So if it's more of a notification to keep us in the loop, or if it's an actual meeting to try and bounce the ideas around, that's I'm a little bit confused about the intent of it, I guess.
Okay, Councillor Coulton?
My take on it was that it's that we get a better understanding how the planning happens, so that we can align it with what our asset management strategy is. That was my take on it. Is that they come and infrastructure talks to us about what they're planning to do in that time frame, And then we understand that that's what's happening, that planning process is in alignment with how our asset management is working. That was my take on it.
Councillor Kush.
And my reason for this also is that there's times where you have, what we'll say like when we're ripping up the cold mix or stuff like that, you know, it might be nice to have an area we can have a bigger discussion instead of tying up a meeting and some of that extra stuff. Or when there's other projects, and some of the projects come up and we know they're coming up, but we don't really have an idea when they're coming up, and we get residents asking, it's kind of hard to explain when or how, you know, we might be impacted by it. So it'd just be nice to get a little more in the loop on that. And if we can, I do agree, maybe you know, monthly on its own might be a little much, but I do like either the hybrid, either doing an RFD and then quarterly, or you know, updates to start. We could play off that, and then at least when our spending comes out, look at the projects being booked, because that's usually at least probably after March, I guess. So probably first quarter, when they come to the update, we'll have a bigger meeting. We should have some idea at least when some of these jobs are coming up, and then have some follow through on them in the second one.
Okay, Councillor Dean, then Councillor Wilhelm.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Kind of sort of summarizing what I'm hearing from everybody, in my opinion, that hybrid where we get notification in the form of an RFD provides that monthly contact with the department. And if we can get administration to try and find this monthly or quarterly date, there could be RFDs that come across our desk where we don't need to have a meeting. But then there could be one where we want to deal with something and we schedule that to a meeting. That I don't know that we need to bind ourselves to a meeting schedule, because there could be some of those RFDs, like you say, in the winter time where it's, you know, there's nothing really that we need to discuss. So I wouldn't be in favor of a monthly meeting. I'm not even sure if I'm in favor of a quarterly meeting, because there could be, during construction season, we might want to have, you know, a meeting 2 or 3 months in a row. And I think when we view the RFD, we can say, similar to referring things to GNP, we could refer it to the monthly infrastructure meeting.
Councillor Wilhelm.
So just bringing like a project management mindset to it, we know that a lot of, like Reed Burrow said, a lot of our work happens in the summer. I wonder if we want to look at and it's kind of similar to what everybody's talking about, but a modified schedule with regards to it. So we have essentially this option 1 spring kickoff meeting, which essentially sets up the rest of the year for like giving us some, okay, this is our overall plan of what we're going to do for the year. And then that'll give council an idea of how intensively we need to have meetings after that, right? Like, I mean, if we've got a very slow spring and not necessarily anything's happening until July or August, then I don't know if we need to go monthly on that, but a spring kickoff meeting would definitely make sense. And then if we could almost do a hybrid of them all, you know, we start with a full meeting in the spring and we get a monthly RFD follow-up, and then and then we have a Teams meeting follow-up as we go, and then by the time we get to winter where nothing's happening, we can just have RFDs afterwards.
Right.
Kind of like how we would do it on the project management side. Like, I just think for one, or option number 1, we're pulling a lot of people in for a monthly meeting, and it might be just tough to coordinate that, even if we have a lot of meetings already. So just my mindset on that.
Want to put that in a motion somewhere?
I was just wondering through to the CEO, what would be the best way to make a motion to kind of structure what we want to do here?
Well, your worship, it depends on the motion. So if council wants to add the monthly report or to the council meeting, we would amend our procedural bylaw to include an infrastructure report. And then if council wants to have a meeting scheduled at the time of the monthly meeting, report, then they could schedule that. Typically, we try to, and COVID has kind of throwing it off our schedule. We usually have a spring road tour, and then depending on how busy the construction season, we do a fall road tour as well. So you could do that in conjunction with it. So the answer is to amend the procedural bylaw to include an RFD report. And again, remember, no different than the financial report we present, you then ask questions. And those questions can be short or they can be very long.
Okay, I'm gonna give Councillor Cush a follow-up and then Councillor Wilhelm.
Just to follow, I understand the part for the RFD, but as far as for scheduling, like, you know, if we wanted to have meetings, but not really scheduled every quarter or whatnot, but, you know, something open-ended where, be like, okay, we feel we've had enough RFDs, we need to.
So council has two types of meetings. One is a sanctioned meeting that is required that the public has the right to attend. And then there's informational sessions that no decisions can come out of it. Typically, the spring road tour is that. It's just strictly informational, that here's the projects that are identified in the budget and here's the issues or something that comes up. So you guys see for yourself. No decisions can be made, and simply it's just an informational. So again, to answer your question is, as long as the meeting, right, is an informational meeting and no decision, we can schedule them at whatever council, whether we send out an email and say, are you available this date, et cetera, right?
Okay.
But if it's a formal meeting, right, where there's a motion and an agenda and a whole bit, which that's why we want to tie that in there. So if there is direction from that, then you're doing it at a formal meeting.
Councillor Wilhelm.
I was going to attempt a motion, but I think I'll hold off for a sec. I just have a question through the chair to administration. One would be, when were we thinking about doing a road tour, for one, and then would doing the road tour and then following that up with this spring kickoff meeting? What kind of timing are we looking at there? Is April the best time? Is May the best time? When do these projects actually start?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Andre.
Typically, past practice, road tours take place after breakup, which is typically early June.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, like, and I'll use an example that occurred in my area, because we had quite a long period of time working on Horn Road. And I think, you know, when we talked about, they had equipment all over the place there, and I had residents calling, and they're like, how can this possibly be this much money, and what are they doing here, and why are they doing this? And I didn't have any answers for them on the specifics of the project necessarily. So I'd feel a lot better as a council, at least understanding what we had going on. And, you know, there were a few little things that we got to put some input into, like, sorry, Jeremy, where are you? 120, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Range Road 120, you know, there's the signage there for where the gravel lot got put in, so that we can actually measure the performance of what that is, and then get a sign out on Horn where the geomesh is, GeoWeb, so that we actually, because 10 years later, you're never going to remember where this stuff is. You have no idea whether or not it's holding up or performing or whatever. So, you know, those were little things that kind of came out of some of the, once we get aware of some of these things. But I don't think the intent was really to make huge decisions, but let's...
No, there were suggestions in your worship, through the council, there were suggestions that came out of a report that we provided to council at one point in time, whether it was an inquiry or through that. So again, administration is always receptive to good ideas.
Councilor Wilhelm?
I think I have a motion that could encompass everything. So we would have, the motion would have to be to amending the meeting bylaw, correct?
The procedural bylaw.
Procedural
yeah,
bylaw.
To include.
Okay, so let me try. Let me take a crack at this.
You can do it, you got this.
I'll make a motion that administration bring an amendment to the procedural bylaw that includes a spring meeting around option number 1 in the RFP. I have to read that whole thing out, or does that make sense?
Do you want a procedural,
Infrastructure.
under reports is 7, right?
Yeah.
Is always 7?
No, not always.
Yeah, what is it?
It's just the report
Okay,
section.
under report,
So, to amend the procedural bylaw to have a scheduled full administration and council meeting around the upcoming infrastructure projects for the year.
separate meeting, okay.
Yes, in the spring, with an RFD in all the other months after that.
So your worship, members of council, you have 2 separate motions. One is the special meeting,
Okay.
which you're asking for, and you can do that at any time. You don't need the amendment to the procedural bylaw. The other part is to include under reports an infrastructure report.
I think if I could, I think the amendment to the procedural bylaw, we're gonna get the information that we need as long as it's leading ahead. And if the plan on the horizon is big, like we see a $6 million project coming up, then we might call a special meeting to have a conversation around what that planning is gonna look like. Is that?
You could do it that way.
And we can react to that
And you don't have to make a
based
motion.
on project by project, rather than pulling everybody in on a monthly basis. And then everybody's here for the council meeting anyways. So the amendment to the procedural bylaw would be just to add a section of reporting from those departments in one.
For infrastructure.
So I'm gonna rescind my motion. Wasn't very good. And I'll make a motion that council directs administration to, and this is where we'll have to amend the procedural bylaw to include an infrastructure report to council. Standing agenda item.
Here we go. We have a good motion.
It was the recommended action.
I know.
Everybody's,
We really went around in a circle there.
he's nodding. Good. Okay, any discussion on that motion? Have we got enough? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Let's see, any opposed? Excellent, that is carried. Okay, that will bring us to new business, 6-1. And everybody's waiting on me and my RFD. So Andre, you're gonna take us through this, hopefully there's good news on our gravel plow truck.
Your worship, members of council, the 2023 capital budget included $540,000 for a new tandem plow sander truck. The tender was let out. We had 2 bids from the same truck supplier. 2 bids were roughly $3,500 different. The pricing includes a 2% increase for this year for pricing increases. However, the chassis price cannot be confirmed until September 2023. All the 2023 units are sold. This will be a 2024 unit. The lowest bid price was a Western Star truck with the Viking Clives plow sander system for $452,812. Includes a 2-year warranty on the truck and 2-year on the accessories, whereas the other one, $3,500 more expensive, only included 1-year warranty on all the accessories. As I mentioned, the chassis price cannot be confirmed until September 2023, which will result in an RFD being brought back to council. And the recommendation is that council approves the purchase of one tandem gravel plow truck with Viking Clives attachments from Western Star North Trucks for the amount of $452,812, pending confirmation of chassis pricing in September 2023.
This is getting like the Terminator plot. We have to go forward in time to snatch the equipment out of it, so. Councillor Prestige.
Through the chair to administration. On the truck itself, you're saying 2-year warranty. Is
Yes.
that the base truck warranty? And is there a warranty on drivetrain, like a 5-year warranty on drivetrain?
Through the chair, it's 2-year bumper-to-bumper warranty on the truck.
Can you purchase more warranty on the drivetrain?
Through the chair, we can. Yes.
I think we should look at that. And was this tender sent out to everybody or just Western Star?
Through the chair, the tender was put on Alberta Purchasing Connection for all suppliers. And as far as the additional warranty, we can confirm that in September when we get the firm chassis pricing.
Because I think it's very important to put the extended warranty on. Because of the cost of the engines, if something happens, you're looking at $50,000-$60,000 to rebuild an engine.
And you can tack that on to the motion to bring back pricing on the extended warranty as well with the RFD. And that way we can make the decision at the time. I mean, maybe it comes back ridiculous, so who knows? But at least it's mentioned in there. Councillor Colkin.
Yeah, through the chair to Andre, just curiosity, what is the life cycle of those units? Like, what do we normally keep them as? How long do we normally keep them?
Through the chair to Councillor Colkin, industry standard is 10 to 12 years on plow sanders. In reason, they operate in pretty much the harshest conditions with the salt and.
Councillor Williams.
You said the warranty's better on the Viking Clives, but is it better, or is it typically doesn't get the life out of it as the other ones, or they're similar? I just know zero about snow plows.
Through the chair to Councillor Williams, my experience, you can't beat a Viking Clives system.
Perfect. Councillor Cush.
I'll make a motion the council approves the purchase of one tandem gravel plow truck with Viking Clives attachments from Western Star North Trucks for the amount of $452,812, pending confirmation of chassis prices in September 2023 and price of additional warranty.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cush. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? And that is carried. All right. Service tracker, monthly report, 172. That is going to be Mr. Frank.
Your worship, members of council, this is your monthly tracking report. And if you have any questions in regards to it, and note kudos. That we get a few of them every once in a
We
while.
got a few of them, yeah.
To this month.
Councillor Dean.
If there's no questions, I'd move that council accepts the monthly service tracker report as info.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Wow. Did I skip something? That brings us to council reports and questions. So, where should we start? Councillor Dean, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. And just before I get going with this, I just want to let everybody know that today is my father-in-law's 90th birthday. And my wife is likely leaving our house in about 10 or 15 minutes, so I may have to leave this meeting early. But as for my activity, I was pretty busy the last 2 weeks. March 3rd was at the ASB supper, which was a lot of fun. It was nice to see the pioneers get recognized. It was nice to see both MLAs there. And Dave did a wonderful job acting as in the Reeves' absence. Then on the 6th, we had an airport advisory meeting where we reviewed our master plan. I think it was a very functional meeting. Gave everybody a better understanding of where we're at within the plan and what our kind of go-forward strategy is. 7th, had a dev meeting, and on the 8th, a brief governance and priorities meeting. And 9th, I was in attendance of a community services meeting where we reviewed the grant applications. And that was a very valuable experience because I believe there were 9 organizations that presented to us. So we got a good understanding of what their organizations were and an opportunity to basically ask what they were going to do with the money. So it was a great meeting. And on the 13th, we had an ACTEV strat plan that further gave that committee some direction. And yesterday, we had an Ag Service Board meeting in Fort Assiniboine that I joined by Teams. So lots of meetings over the last 2 weeks.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Dean. Any questions to Councillor Dean? All right, Councillor Prestidge.
I had, same as Councillor Dean, the airport advisory meeting. And, yeah, it was a really good meeting. We got kind of some direction with that too. And, the dev strat plan, it turned out to be a very good meeting. Trying to get direction with all the board members straightened out, and it turned out very well. Yesterday, I had Eagle Tower Victim Services meeting, and that one is, we're not sure when we're gonna wrap it up. It looks like in 13 months it's gonna be dissolved, because that's when the province is gonna take over, but nothing's written in stone yet, and it depends on the next election, so we're kind of in limbo. And, that's about it.
Thanks, Councillor Prestidge. Any questions to Councillor Prestidge? Councillor Cush.
My last couple weeks a little bit slower. Had the ASB dinner, A2. Great seeing the awards going out to the community members, beautification awards and pioneer awards. And there's a lot of very deserving people in our community. Aside from that, I had our brief GMP meeting, and then unfortunately wasn't able to make the ASB meeting yesterday. So.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cush. Any questions to Councillor Cush? No. Okay. Councillor Wilhelm.
Okay, since the last council meeting, I had a few meetings. Well, I had the March 4th, I went to the Lunchbox Center, not as a councillor, but just representing myself. And it was a very well-attended event. I think completely sold out except for one table. Everybody had a great time. The band was a one-man band playing guitar, doing every type of cover song from, top 40 to country, and I was amazed how well this guy could play the guitar and carry these very popular songs as a single person singing and playing. So lots of people up dancing. It was a fantastic time, and obviously supporting a great community group. We had our airport advisory meeting, as Councillor Dean was saying, strat review. The members at large that we have in there are very vocal, and I very appreciated the input that they have on that committee. So I think they bring a lot of great energy to that one. Had the GMP one, which we saw the results of today. And then, as well as Councillor Dean, we had the community services meeting where we reviewed the FCSS grants. And like you said, there's lots of awesome community groups that we're giving that grant funding should come to council, but we've discussed and found their plans for the upcoming year, and I think we have some really great groups that we're gonna be hopefully funding here this year, so it was great to talk to them, and other than that, that's all I got.
Thanks, Councillor Wilhelm. Any questions to Councillor Wilhelm? Okay, Councillor Kuchen.
Yeah, I had an interesting week since the last meeting. The Ag Service Bird Supper was a lot of fun. The community group there put on a good bar. The supper was great. It was a really good evening. The magician was quite a magician. we had a bit of fun. Well, I had a bit of fun with him. I guess I misinterpreted something that he said. He told me with one of those indelible markers, he told me to write my name on his back. What he meant was to write it on a $20 bill on his back. So I just drew my name on his back. And so I didn't get a dry cleaning bill, so we should be good. But it was an incredibly interesting performance. It was pretty cool because I checked that lemon out and there were no holes in it, but my $20 bill was inside it. So it was a lot of fun. And then I was invited to a community meeting in Fort Assiniboine where they wanted to discuss land use, gravel trucks, and that ended up being a complete disaster because there was accusations that the folks that organized it were part of a group here, and unfortunately it was a knife throwing contest. Instead of me, the community member, it's me, the councillor, but that's all right. I don't have a problem with it. I still believe that planning within a community should come from the roots up, not from the top down. And quite interestingly, there was a group of folks now that would like to sit down and sort their stuff out without any council people there and be a solutions group that would work in alignment with council rather than in protest with council. And they're really interested in having us educate them on the taxation, the planning, and all of that stuff as we see it and how they can be involved in it. So despite the fact that there was a lot of ugly moments, I think there was more positive things that came from it because I just, for the first time, got nothing but positive feedback. I got no negative feedback. So, and I got a lot of people that phoned me and said, thank you very much for opening the can of worms. So I don't think it was a negative thing. Then on Tuesday, or on the 7th, we had our economic development committee meeting. I didn't attend. I had a Buffalo Bull that decided that he could outbluff me, and he did a pretty good job, so I wasn't able to attend a few of those meetings because they kind of have a dislocated shoulder. So it's one of those things that happen when you're as old as I am and your brain still thinks you're 40. So, but so I missed the ECDev workshop. I did attend the service board meeting on the 14th. It was a really productive meeting. It was very interesting. Some of the things that came to the forefront there was we had invited the stewardship group to make a presentation, and it was so in alignment with some of the things that are happening in our community, and it's happening all over the province of Alberta. And that is that there are an incredible amount of urban people moving into rural communities, and it is going to change the landscape. And they are just people who want to have the kind of the freedom in the country, and they have not a clue as to how they can even work there. So this group is kind of a stewardship group. They have all kinds of resources that the Ag Service Board, that they can apply through the Ag Service Board workshops, so on and so forth, so that these folks understand that there is some land use requirements and stewardship requirements that are their responsibility. So that was a really interesting piece of that meeting, and that brings us to today.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? I'm gonna ask one. Just the meeting that happened up there, certainly we got there's some press on it, and it looks like there's a woodlands attachment to it, and I just wanted to ask questions about that. Certainly community members are community members, and it's hard because whenever one of us stands up, they always see us as a counselor rather than a community member first. But was this, this was in no means endorsed by Woodlands County, and I think, did we ask for a correction on that as well, Mr. Frank?
Yeah, Your Worship, we did.
Okay. So I just wanted to ask about that though, and was this?
It was organized by a community group, and even the poster said the counselors were invited. There was no particular thing, and when I originally went in there, I said that I'm wearing my community hat, but unfortunately the events turned it into you're a counselor and you're responsible for these things, and I tried to deflect as much as I could. Mr. Williams was there as well.
Okay. Anyone else have a Councillor Wilhelm?
I think with regards to that event, it's more of a comment than a question. When you told us that this event was happening, you had said that you were working with them so they could organize a meeting, a committee meeting, but either from that article or people that have talked to you, but at the meeting, you were chairing that meeting, running that meeting, you were up at the front. I think we had a discussion a couple weeks ago about doing these types of things where we make sweeping statements for council, and you were quoted in the paper making statements on behalf of Woodlands County, talking about creating committees for land use bylaws, things that are coming down the pipeline for Woodlands County. That's not being there as a resident, that's not being there participating in the meeting, that's you there running that meeting, and you said that you weren't doing that.
Well, the interesting part about that was that I was asking the questions, and it was quoted as this is what council wants to happen. I was asking the question of the community, and that's what was quoted in the paper. I asked the question, does the community want to be involved in land use planning and those bylaws? I never said that council was asking for that. I asked the community, are you wanting to do that? And this is your meeting. And unfortunately, it got completely derailed because of individuals that showed up there with a completely different agenda. And that was unfortunate, but for me, it was questions. Like, what do you want as a community? Do you want council to work with you? Do you want to work with council? Because those questions are coming to me all the time. What are you doing? And I said, no, what are you doing? And I think actually the last comment that was made by one of the ladies there was, yeah, we need to be involved in the process. And that's what I was asking for. Do you want to be? I never once said this is what the council is directing. But if you read the paper, that's how they write it, and that's unfortunately good information or good infotainment for them. So I never did speak for council.
I'll follow it up because I wasn't there, so everything is secondhand. But even just what you're saying there, asking them how they want to interact with council, you went to that meeting and those questions you were asking them was when you ask how you want to interact with council, that's you wearing your counselor hat in that position. That's not you
Fair
being
enough.
Peter Culkin, that's Councillor Culkin. And you lent legitimacy to that meeting and you created a Woodlands Town Hall meeting without meaning to. And that's where the issue comes. That's why it's such a bad look on us right now. And I think we don't need to talk about it much, or I don't feel the need to talk about it much more, but I felt the need to just express the fact that we can't take our counselor hats off.
Yeah, and I think it's, and I've spoken about this land use thing and everything else. I mean, everybody, right now, since the activities of the last 3 years, everybody is on edge. And I think it doesn't take too much to get people excited about either land use or property rights or, you know, things that are going on around their in their community. So it's a difficult time to do the job that we're in right now. And I think we'll be having some of those conversations later, but Councillor Williams.
Kind of with that meeting, at the time I didn't really see it too much, but after I had a lot of people call me and ask why I wasn't at the front with Peter at that. And I'd explain a lot because everybody that I talked to after that contacted me perceived that as a council Woodlands meeting. And I went there just to see what kind of went on, and I was at the back, and I took a bit of flack for that and why other councillors weren't there as well. So it was definitely perceived as a Woodlands County meeting, and I'm not sure if you guys read the Barrhead Leader, but there's 2 articles in there about it, and I think everybody there did. So I don't think that the intent was to do that. I don't think, from what Peter was saying there, but it's impossible to take off the counselor hat in a group like that. And when they're asking questions, they take whatever you're saying as coming from council. That's a hard path to navigate, I think. And I think, because it was even said there that it was helped organized and asked the other people to help you with organizing it. So it was definitely portrayed as a meeting for Woodlands County. I think it was a mistake, and I feel like we maybe made a mistake there and brought some bad press onto us, and we really stepped on administration's toes because I got a lot of feedback about how the development department's maybe not doing their job by us having to do this. So I think we kind of threw them under the bus a little bit, not on purpose, but I think they're probably seeing this too. So I hope that they're not too frustrated with the whole situation.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. I think we're good there then. Who does that bring us to? No? Councilor Williams?
I was really busy. I completed my CAO 360 review interview that I think everybody did since our last council meeting. And I actually asked her if there was a lot of participation or if it was lower than she thought. And she said it was, she didn't have the numbers in front of her, but it was.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
going to
be
interrupt,
careful.
just so that you understand, this is under personnel. Any evaluations like this is under personnel, which is under FOIA, so.
Okay, but, okay, so the ASB supper, I went to that after. That's a really good event. I enjoy going there every time. Meal was terrific, everybody there was really good, so thanks to everybody that puts that on. That's a lot of work, I think. I can't believe the amount of door prizes that they give out. I think almost everybody leaves with a prize that's donated.
I never get a door prize.
I pulled the first number out to announce it. It was my wife. I'm like, put that back. She's like, no. So that didn't work out very well. But and then the GMP meeting, I think that was a record. We probably are in a record book somewhere for fastest meeting ever. And then I attended the bicentennial. I usually don't hear about them till after. So there was a community member who told me the date, so I went over there, and that's a really good group of people that are organizing that. I think they have a pretty good grasp on it. They're planning on feeding over 2,000 people. Pretty impressive. They said they probably need 2 hours. 2,000 people in 2 hours is pretty good. I went to the Ag Society meeting on Monday, and they're kicking off a lot of different stuff. The rodeo events are locked down. There's county ball registration open. They're looking into, this isn't set up, but maybe doing a swimming lessons program, because it's quite difficult to get kids in, so they're taking some of that on, possibly. The county will also be, hopefully people are watching this, but the county's going to be doing some clearing on the road allowance next to the arena to go into Walsh Park. It's like really grown in, and the road, not much visibility there. So I think they're going to brush some trees down there, so we might have some people that don't like getting rid of the trees. And they're going to start working on a 5-year plan just to help out with grants and kind of see where the Ag Society is going to go. They're talking about putting some power in at Walsh Park, so rather than just willy-nilly put it in, they want to actually build a bit of a plan, so I think that's really good. And then yesterday was the Ag Service Board meeting. We're going to be having a survey go out about a scale in Fort Assiniboine just to gauge some feedbacks, whether there's support there or not. Just looking forward to maybe putting that out to council if that would be supported. So just trying to get some groundwork there. So Dawn's been doing a ton of work on that. And then the fourth quarter VSI amounts all came back, and the programs got really good participation, and we didn't go way over budget or anything. So I think it's pretty good. And that's all I have.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Williams. Any questions to Councillor Williams? Councillor Cook?
Yeah, just for Councillor Cush, that we tabled a report for you to give to the next Ag Service Board meeting. I just gave him a little bit of the highlights he asked me to.
And Don sent me a message.
Oh, good.
So hopefully I'll have that remembered for another couple of months.
Yeah, because unless you're there, it's so hard to put any context to it.
Okay, Councillor Preston and Councillor Williams.
The weigh scale that's available, may be available at the landfill,
Bless you.
has nothing to do with the county.
Oh, okay.
It's strictly,
The landfills.
no, it's going to be, the county has nothing to do with it. It has to be the Ag Society or them people that do everything.
Yeah, it's just at that meeting we put out just but because the county will be asked for money, that's why I
No, it's not.
don't. Oh, okay. Well then I got my wires crossed.
Well, you can ask, but, yeah.
I think
Councillor Williams?
What's a BSI report, sorry?
VSI, so it's a vet.
Veterinarian
Vet-
Services.
I don't remember the I though.
Incorporated.
Is that what it is? Okay, so it's just a split. So depending on what it is, there's a whole criteria what they fall into. Like say you do a cesarean section on a cow, you can get Woodlands County is 50-50, so the county pays for 50% of the procedure. So it just promotes herd health and keeps vets kind of in business a bit. So
Okay. Councillor Cook?
Yeah, we have a real problem recruiting and keeping vets for the big animal practice. And so the program was developed because we really, like Dan said, we really want to make sure that the herd healths are there. But it's so difficult to especially over here, Ryan Bachland told us it's tough for them to get service over here. We don't have as much of a problem over there, but it's hard to get it here.
Councillor Cush?
just one kind of follow-up on a scale that Councillor Williams is talking about. It's not the Fort Assiniboine Ag Group that's looking at it. It's the county ASB.
yeah.
For trucks and stuff in the area coming down the roads for seeing what their weights and permits are. So that would be something that would come out of our pocket.
Well, then, why are we doing
It's just something we're doing
When I brought it up, the scale is going to be available, they can get it for $1. And it's up to them to figure out how to install it, move it. The county was not to be involved in it.
If I can follow that up, so
Go ahead.
we started talking about this way before the landfill scale option, or if you want to call it an option, came up. So it was brought up at the Ag Service Board, just the history of it, but it was brought up at the Ag Service Board that a lot of community members, there's nowhere to weigh anything around there for agriculture, no way to weigh grain or cows or whatever else. So lots of people were bringing it up, so it was brought forward to the Ag Service Board committee to look into. So what we're doing now is putting out a survey to see if there's actual support or if it was just 10 people that were wanting this. So right now we're just in the stages of figuring out if it's something the community would want or need, if there's a need for it. If there is, then we would proceed to the next steps of pricing and doing things like that, or looking at the landfill one if that one got donated or whatever. So that's where that all is.
Okay. So there might be a synergy there between the two things, and there might not.
Nothing's committed from the county currently. Like it's
Okay.
just in the planning stages of.
We're good. Okay.
That's all I think.
Nobody cares about my report. Yeah, so, had an interview on the community services, the new community services, there's an acronym for it. What's the acronym for it? LICO, which is low income. I hate acronyms. Anyway, the cutoff for the
Low income cutoff.
there it is, right there. See, look at that. Cutoff for low income. Yeah, the low income cutoff. So I've had some discussions with people, and I wonder if we might want to relook at that number because it's really low. When we were talking about it, and I'm like it's really low. So I'm just wondering if we might want to look at that low income cutoff number again, because we're talking about some property landowners and property tax rebates and things like that, or not a tax rebate, but a $150. I guess it'd be a rebate if you're a landowner. And I honestly don't know how you can own anything on that number. And we were having conversations about that. So that was one thing that came back to me. I wanted to thank Councillor Cush for picking up the slack on the governance and priorities meeting. Apparently he ran it and got it done in record time, so maybe I should just get you to do it.
7 minutes.
And I was away on an insurance pool, so this was not on the county's dime. I was away on for those of you that don't know, there was a time when the underwriters of the world decided that municipalities were a terrible risk. So they decided they weren't going to insure them anymore. So that resulted in the creation of some of these risk pools that are just insuring municipalities. So we were in there talking about this insurance. So one of the things that came out of that is that council doesn't have much of an awareness on where we are on insurance claims and spends and things like that. So we were looking at maybe getting some. There was a discussion around some of the municipalities requesting some reporting on some of the insurance claims and how they happen and how do we mitigate them, and is there anything council can do to guide some of that, not get into the weeds, but to, I guess, guide the vision, if you know what I mean. And if we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it. So there was a conversation around that. I also attended the town's doctor recruitment, I called it the doctor recruitment because that's what it used to be called. This is now a healthcare worker recruitment. So this includes nurses and specialists and support staff and and physicians. So it's a much broader initiative, which I'm happy about. One of the things that I found interesting is I think there was a discussion around the table when they talked about trying to attract people to the area and trying to bring them out of an urban area and move them to another area that has all the services of an urban area. And I kind of think we need to move in a different direction. There's got to be a doctor out there that actually enjoys horseback riding, hunting, shooting stuff, and doing things that you do in rural Alberta. Dirt biking, we've got some fantastic outdoor snowmobiling, great trails, all of these things. So I was kind of bent on trying to marry some of those synergies up with getting people that are interested in those types of activities. I thought they'd be a better fit to the community, and it's more, and that's not just here, this is across rural Alberta. So when you're looking at recruiting people, you try and bring people to the area that are built that way. And if they're coming from another country, it's kind of hard. Canada's a huge country. There's a lot of people that get here from Europe. What you mean it takes 3 days to drive across the province? It's not all the provinces, but it's a big country. So anyway, the conversations are good. It looks like we're on the right path. We'll move things along from there. And that concludes everything that I have. Councillor Williams.
Not really a question, but maybe a comment. I got a lot of feedback about the low income cutoff as well, and a lot of seniors are like, we're pensioners. How can you make less money than this and survive? And they're all the ones that called me are over that by a bit too. So I 100% support bringing that back. I think we could double it at least, and we still would be in low income right now.
Yeah, okay.
Can we maybe bring that forward again, or how should we do that?
We have that policy all written up, right?
Yeah, it's already drafted, ready to go. We've done have we done the
It's adopted effective
media
July
and
1.
stuff? Huh?
That's adopted.
Yeah, back in,
It adopted effective Jan 1, and the communications have started.
yeah,
It's adopted, but it's not, doesn't take
implemented
effect.
July
effective,
1st.
yeah.
July
So-
1st, I believe.
So if we wanted to change a number in there, or wanted to look at it, we,
Communications have started.
Yeah, the difficulty with it is the province and the feds use that same number. So you're gonna use a different number based on that, and then how do you determine, and I'm talking administration, that number is different because what line in their income tax you use to determine whether or not they're low income. Right, that's the difficulty with that whole process. But I can get Joan to provide a report to council on a better understanding that low income.
do you need a motion on it?
No, I can bring it back. Yeah. Andre can bring it back.
Andre?
Yeah, he'll be acting.
Oh, yeah. I was good. Okay. And after we're done filling potholes, we'll talk about the low income.
Okay.
So you're good with that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I'd just rather maybe catch a couple extra versus miss some that could really use that.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Councillor Prestige?
I'll make a motion that council accept council reports and questions as information.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. We'll go to the CAO report.
Your worship, members of council, the past week you've been interviewing for executive assistants and finance manager, and decisions have been made, and offers will be out shortly thereafter. And then the group or team is dealing with the asset coordinator, which is this week too as well, or next?
Next week.
Next week, yeah. Met with the benefit providers to discuss some short-term and long-term disability understanding on our policy. When an employee goes from short-term to long-term disability, and then the need when the individual, after a certain period of time, when do they become the insurance company's individual responsibility versus the employers, and discovered that we need to work on one of our policies because we don't have an actual date when they stop becoming our employees. So that's something that has been tasked to Victoria to draft up a policy on that. And then met with the consultants on our strategic planning session for June and preparing for that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to our CAO? What's the date of our judicial review again?
June 6th.
June 6th. Okay. Councilor Cush?
Make a motion to accept the CAO reports as information.
All right, thank you, Councilor Cook. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. All right. So we will have, I'll take a motion to move into closed session here, but we're gonna have
We can just come out and go back in.
I think that's what we'll have to do. So we'll go into closed session for item 8.1, and that's the CAO 360 on 419. And I'll just take a motion for that one item, and we'll come back out and we'll go back in. Councillor Wilhelm.
I'll motion that we go into closed session under FOIP 19.
Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Prestige?
Oh.
All in favor? Okay, that is carried. We are in closed session. I'll wait for Nikita to let us know. And then okay, so we're back from closed session. Okay, so we're back from closed session under item 8.1 on the CA 360 review, and we have a motion arising from that. Councillor Williams?
I'll make a motion that we accept the CAO 360 review as information.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Okay, and then we have our last item here, which is item 8.2, Doris Colkin letter. So,
Yeah, I will declare pecuniary interest on that.
and when you're declaring a pecuniary interest, you have to say why. So just,
Because of my relationship with the individual that's going to be spoken about.
okay, thank you. With that, I'll thank you then, Councillor Colkin, and I'll accept.
And I assume that you're just leaving and not coming back. Yeah, so.
Okay. And with that, I'll accept a motion to move into closed session,
So
Councilor.
a motion to go in closed session under FOIP 17.
It is FOIP 17, yes. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, so we're back from closed session, and we were dealing with item 8.2. We have a motion arising from that. Councilor Williams.
I'll make a motion to accept the Doris Kulikin letter as information.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? All right, with that, we are at item 9. Councilor Kush.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? That's carried. We are adjourned.